person will have approximately 2 minutes to speak at the podium. Be respectful of other people when they're talking. Do not interrupt them. Let them have their piece. We'll get started here. That's why you signed in and put on the list in order to get started.
Yep.
So is there a motion to open the
I'll
public
make a
hearing?
motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have written comments, we've read those. So we'll get started with the public, so we've got quite a few people to get through.
Right, the first person, Kathy Jones.
Can I address everybody, or do I just?
Come to the podium.
Go to the podium.
All right. Okay. I want everybody to turn to their neighbor and smile. So we can take a little bit of this tension away. I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for honoring your word and holding this hearing and listening to us today. I know that your position and your responsibilities are not easy. We would like you to revise the ordinance considering the cost of all Iowa County residents. There's a passage in Luke that says, "For which of you intending to build a tower sitteth not down first to count the cost?" I am here because I feel like I represent all of Iowa County. We have a farm. We have a farm business. I understand the hardships that are on farmers, and many who have signed up for wind turbines are our friends. But I also represent the small landowner. 3 of our children who have purchased land in this last year, just 2 to 3 acres. They purchased land not knowing that the land next to them had been signed up for turbines. They love the county, they love the land, they love the people. 2 of them are teachers. Do you know which is a thankless job? Just like your job, it's thankless at times. One of our daughters and son are just building their house now, and their property is in the middle of a large farm. So they have 3 acres in the middle of this large farm. There's a potential for them to have turbines on 3 of the sides of their home. This new ordinance would just provide a little bit better protection for them, make it a little bit farther away from the home that they plan to raise their family in and live here. Our second daughter purchased land, not knowing that the family, or that there was a farm close by. And she has Lyme's disease. And Lyme's disease, she's had seizures in the past, and there is real evidence that the flickering and the lights can induce seizures. So for her protection, I would like the ordinance passed. Please consider revising the ordinance to protect all our county residents. Count the cost for the whole county. Don't forget the farmers, they are our friends. But remember the small landowners who are serving our community, paying taxes, and educating the next generation of Iowa County residents. I once heard a quote that said, "Counting the cost is the secret step for the success of everything."
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Rita McDonald.
Rita McDonald, North English, Iowa, English River Bottom. We started a petition just recently, but back in March, there was an online petition, and what it requested was a half-mile distance between non-participants. And in the meantime, in July, we started another one. So there are crossover names. I went through and I deleted all the names that were on the first petition from the second petition, or from the second petition to the first. So the first petition they put out was 381 signatures, and after I took away the duplicates from those that signed the second time, because it was sort of confusing, There's 189 left of those. There are 812 on the latest one, online and in petitions, signature petitions. And so that gives us a total of 1,003 of all Iowa County voters. So the second petition requests that a minimum setback distance of a half mile from non-participants' property lines to the center of the turbine, a noise limit of 40 decibels, a minimum setback of 2 miles from the center of the turbine to all unincorporated town city limits, a minimum setback distance of 1 mile from the center of the turbine to active bald eagles and bat nests, and equal protection of the English and Iowa rivers of 3 miles from the center of the turbine to the edge of the river. These petitions amount to 13% of the voting population from the last numbers that voted in the last general election. I can send all this to you, email, but otherwise I'm just turning this in. All the signatures from the second petition, from the first petition, and then this is interesting. It's all the comments that they wrote online, what they had in objection to the turbine. That's what I've got. Thank you.
Next, Mary Miller.
I want to provide the board and the public with some numbers to help gain a perspective on what we've seen so far in this process. A group of concerned citizens paid to see the Board of Supervisors' emails regarding wind turbines. In looking over these emails, only 5 citizens were in favor of wind energy. While I know that isn't a hard value in general consensus of the county, it does provide a good feel for official requests and opinions. Of the 60 property owners or entities who are supposed to be getting turbines in the Diamond Trail project, 47 live in Iowa County and 13 do not. When the Diamond Trail agreement moved forward, the Board of Supervisors protected those who wanted wind turbines. 21% of those people getting turbines do not even live here or participate in our elections. For future wind farms that would be allowed in this ordinance, I think it would be best to honor the request of those of us who actually live in Iowa County over the absentee landowners who will never pay the price for this decision. Thank you.
Abby Moss.
Abby Moss, Iowa County resident. I'm here to explain a concept that an attorney brought to my attention recently as a potential issue with the current ordinance of 32. I'd like to draw your attention to our diagram that we have here, if everyone could look. If you see this, the Environmental Council's best siting practices recommends 1,000 to 1,250 feet between a home and a turbine. So with the current ordinance, the property line setback is 700 feet. If you put a turbine 700 feet from your property line, it is infringing on your neighbor's ability to build, because the wind energy associations, who are obviously in favor for the wind companies, have stated that it's not safe to have a home within 1,250 feet. Also leads me to another idea. How many of you would feel comfortable building a shop, grazing your cattle? If you're not safe there, why would you put anything else there? So it's not just homes, it's for a number of reasons that we are presenting this today, that it is unsafe to have a 700-foot setback distance from a property line. I'd also like to note that in Ordinance 30, the nuisance ordinance that the county passed last year, I think it was, you ruled that something that is perceived to be a nuisance, by making this ordinance, you're saying that something that's perceived as nuisance can affect the quality of life and enjoyment for other landowners. And I want to ask, why isn't the same respect given to the turbines? Thank you.
Jody Donahue.
Jody Donahue, landowner in Parnell, resident in Holbrook. I'd like to ask the board to vote no for the current drafted ordinance and take into consideration all the revisions today. One of the revisions that I'd like to speak to you about is we would like a setback distance in the ordinance to be changed to 4.4 times the height of the turbine from a non-participating property line. Given other areas in Iowa, and as you guys know, there's turbines that are 400 foot, 600 foot, and 800 foot. We'd like this setback distance to be a multiplier format. That is what other Iowa counties have put into their ordinance, and I feel we should do that as well. The half mile we requested is equivalent to 4.4 the times of a 600 foot turbine. You can reference your Appendix D to the conversion of the other setbacks. The second request, I would like to point that I had emailed and Ray had responded, is that we also have a setback from historical landmarks. Thank you.
Janie Stahl.
Janie Stahl, Iowa County resident, and live in Pilot Township. So I'd like to substantiate the half mile request, or the 4.4 times the height of a 600 foot turbine. So this request is from non-participants only. Other county ordinances in Iowa have setbacks from all dwellings. So this is a fair setback given that it's only for non-participants. In addition, participants and even non-participants could waive this setback if they want a turbine closer to their home. For a 400 foot turbine, shadow flicker is cast 3/4 of a mile. Noise can be heard up to 2 miles away. The Iowa Soybean Association announced in 2018 that they support a half mile setback from all residences. Dallas County in Iowa has a half mile setback from all dwellings. The United Kingdom Noise Association recommended a 1 mile setback. The American Academy of Audiology recommended a setback of 1.25 miles from all dwellings. The Madison County Board of Health recently recommended 1.5 miles. So again, the half mile setback is a fair distance, it's been substantiated, and again, this could be waived if somebody wants a turbine closer to their home. So it's a fair request. And another reminder is only 17 residents within the Diamond Trail project will live within a half mile of their turbine. We need an ordinance with a setback distance that protects the non-participants who have no control over their neighbors' decisions. Thank you.
Denise Mathis.
Denise Mathis, Fillmore Township. According to the Iowa DNR, there are currently 262 active bald eagle territories in Iowa. Iowa County has 4. These birds were endangered not long ago, and therefore we should do our best to protect our nation's bird. The DNR is only allowed to make recommendations in order to protect and avoid wildlife and other natural resource conflicts. A letter with its recommendations was shared with the board, and recommendations were believed to be included with the first agreement. To the county's horror, it was eliminated along with the English River setback. We move that ordinance 32 includes the recommended 5-mile buffer for active bald eagles' nests. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recommends 1, maintain natural forested or vegetative buffers around nest trees, and 2, avoid certain activities during the nesting season. The buffer areas serve to minimize visual and auditory impacts associated with the human activities near the site. As far as bird death, it says in Mid-America's Conservation Plan for Iowa Wind Farms, quote, when it comes to eagles, one measure would be to educate nearby residents the importance of not putting out food sources that could cause the birds to fly into the path of the turbines, unquote. Wind companies have failed to gain our trust, and this quote makes it obvious they are willing to place blame on others for actually attracting eagles to the turbine's path. Teddy Roosevelt said it well, here's your country, cherish these natural wonders, cherish the natural resources, cherish the history and romance as a sacred heritage for your children and your children's children. Do not let selfish men or greedy interests skin your country of its beauty, its riches, or its romance.
Michael Mathis.
Mike Mathis, Iowa County, East Parnell right now, but grew up on the English River. Some of you guys know it. The English River should be protected, the same as the Iowa River, for 3 miles. without the 3-mile setback for the English River, this decision fails the arbitrary and capricious test. These are big words, so just bear with me, guys. Arbitrary and capricious is a clear error of judgment, an action not based upon consideration of relevant factors, such as making the 2 rivers in Iowa County having equal setbacks. So this is arbitrary. Arbitrary and capricious, I already put that part. The supervisors have not given a definable reason for not including the English River in a 3-mile setback. With this, we request a 3-mile setback for the English River ordinance.
Denise Livka.
First, I'd like to thank the board for their time in establishing an ordinance regulating wind turbines in Iowa County. And while I feel the proposed ordinance is a good start, I'd like to suggest some wording similar to that found in other county ordinances in Iowa. Many other counties have established a clear and well-defined approval process to keep their constituents from being blindsided by a wind farm project. One, a public information meeting, and 90 days prior to a developer submitting an application, the developer must hold a public informational meeting, which would be publicized within official publications in the area and include information regarding the location of the site and the number of turbines. A written notice must be mailed to all property owners within 1 mile of any planned turbine. 60 days prior to submitting an application, the developer should be responsible for notifying applicable government and community agencies of the proposed project and must allow them 60 days to review and approve, such as, but not limited to, the FFA, DNR, county boards like the Health Department, Conservation Department, and city officials. Any developer prospecting, and that's their word for it, an area for a wind farm shall first submit an application to the Iowa County Board of Supervisors with the following information along with an application fee, and you can see that in the appendix for the specifics. After all local government agencies have approved the application, the Board of Supervisors should hold 2 public hearings within 60 days of receiving the application. At least 1 hearing should be held in the evening, and a written notice of each hearing must be mailed to all property owners within 1 mile of any planned turbine. The Board of Supervisors shall vote to approve or reject the proposed project within 30 days of the second hearing. If the application is approved, the board may prescribe appropriate conditions and safeguards as well. The application or permit would be valid for 2 years from the date the board approves. If a new site is proposed outside of the approved site area, a new application would be filed. These steps would ensure the public is not blindsided by an industrial wind farm in their county, and that they have an opportunity to become informed about the project and make their opinions known to their elected officials. For these reasons, I request that you vote against approving the proposed ordinance as drafted and make revisions. Thank you.
Jerry Hansen.
Jerry Hansen, live in Green Township. It is our understanding that the Diamond Trail project is loosely defined by the Diamond Trail Agreement. We need further clarification on what future projects will be covered by Ordinance 32. This could be done by defining the Diamond Trail project with the exact number of turbines. Ordinance 32 should clearly state it applies to any and all turbines in Iowa County outside of the 78 turbines in the Diamond Trail project. We do not want any additional turbines included into the current Diamond Trail project. Any new construction of wind turbine projects in Iowa County must be covered by Ordinance 32. Thank you.
Harold Joseph.
Harold Joseph, Pilot Township. I'm talking about the decommissioning policy. I think I actually am speaking for the participants in the county itself. Decommissioning funds. We would like the decommissioning policy to be revised to include the following items. An independent, keyword independent, licensed engineer shall estimate the total cost of decommissioning the facility and shall be submitted to the board with the initial application every 5th year thereafter. A good decommissioning fund shall be set aside and maintained by the developer in the form of cash, CD, bond, or escrow. The interest should go to the fund as well. Prior to any grading or construction, 50% of the total estimated decommissioning cost should be provided. Inflation raised a minimum of 12.5% of the total estimated decommissioning cost shall be posted to the decommissioning fund every year for the next 4 years until 100% of the total current estimated decommissioning costs are deposited. I mentioned an application every 5th year thereafter. If that's not palatable, I would suggest a mandatory inflation cost of 2%. Having said that, I've got a newspaper article from the Des Moines Register, November 25th, 2018, stating up at Fairbanks, Iowa, Fayette County, court documents show it costs $450,000 to take down those turbines. Having said that, I realized they probably took more care taking them down because they was brand new turbines and they wanted to save all the parts. I realize we've talked about this in previous board meetings about the decommissioning, and it's been brought up that there would be some salvage money that would come back when they did decommission them, but I don't recall the figure, but it was a long ways from $150,000. The other thing in favor is the taxes, and we've talked about this 3 times. And again, in that contract, it says perhaps the landowner or perhaps the developer would pay the property tax if it was set up by the county, or they would reimburse the landowner. I think for the sake of the landowner or the participant, they're going to pay the taxes anyway. Why not pay them directly to the county? And then, having said that, at the end of the use of the turbines, they would still pay property tax until the turbine was taken down. That would give them good reason to escalate taking down the turbines. Thank you kindly.
Paula Watkins.
Paula Watkins, Iowa County. I'm amazed at the response from Iowa County residents on this issue and believe they have only good intentions about protecting the future of the county. I would challenge the board to find some middle ground between the current proposed ordinance and changes requested by their constituents. At the last Board of Supervisors meeting I attended, they directed me to their website for information on wind turbines. After reading the Wind Turbines and Health statement posted on your website, I sent the board a letter including references which stated, given Health Canada's advisories, the unresolved research and knowledge gaps, limitations and uncertainties presented in this paper, reliance of Health Canada study results to support the safety of wind turbines in literature and during judicial processes should be considered with caution in predicting or understanding the health risks of wind turbine noise. In addition, the authors reference the Council of Canadian Academy study repeatedly. Key findings from it include knowledge gaps prevent a full assessment of public health effects of wind turbine noise. A weighting, used in Ordinance 32, may fail to capture the low frequency components of wind turbine sound. The World Health Organization in 2018 recommended wind turbine noise guidelines of less than 45 decibels day, evening, night, weighted sound pressure level. Since the noise ordinance level in Ordinance 32 exceeds the WHO recommendations, I ask the Board of Supervisors to vote no on Ordinance 32. My assessment after reading the information on your website is that all of the information is about maximizing profits from wind turbines. Nothing is about protecting the people and wildlife from the negative effects of wind turbines. The following word applies: propaganda, defined as information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Thank you.
Rick Rogers.
Well, I think I'm going to approach this a little differently. I just plain don't like the looks of them. My concern is the judgments that the voting on this ordinance today that you do is gonna have the long-term effects of generations to come. And my concern is that you're gonna be changing, and we're gonna have to live with it, the entire landscape of Iowa County, as far as looking at all these windmills that potentially could come to this county. I'm not against farmers farming and doing their business, but I am definitely not for the windmill project. Thank you.
Jennifer Weldon.
I am here as the clerk of the Parnell City Council. Each member of my council was voted in to represent and protect the rights of our residents in the same manner each of you were elected to do so on a county level. Mayor Stoner found out about this commercial wind energy project in June of this year, and the council members shortly after that. The cities of Ladora, Millersburg, North English, and Victor did not know in advance. A project of this magnitude will impact our residents for more than 30 years. Our respective councils did not have the opportunity to ask our residents for input, nor provide input to the Board of Supervisors prior to signing the agreement. The Parnell City Council is bound by the same procedures the Board of Supervisors are. We have to notify our residents in advance that a topic is being discussed. We have to have 3 public meetings to gain input from those affected. Then the council is able to vote based on the will of the people. One of our members is involved in the Diamond Trail project, which presents a conflict of interest. This individual should remove themselves from all discussions and actions. I think you all would agree. Council has been asked to work for a hedge of protection in whatever manner is available. Rick Rogers presented Parnell's request for a 2-mile buffer from the city limits last Friday. I would like to quote a portion of Iowa Code 414.23, which states, "The powers granted by this chapter may be extended by ordinance by any city to the unincorporated area up to 2 miles beyond the limits of such city, except for those areas within a county where a county zoning ordinance exists." We are requesting that you represent the majority and vote no to Ordinance 32 as written. Ladora, Millersburg, Parnell, and Victor should not be pushed aside in the rush to enact an ordinance that does not reflect the will of the people. Thank you.
Chuck Gensley.
My name is Chuck Gensley. I'm representing the city council and the members of the city of Millersburg. Last Friday, we also turned in a request for a 2-mile setback. And I know you folks have said that you'd have to rewrite the whole ordinance in effect of that. And I just think that having to rewrite the ordinance for a long-term effect is well worth it. And I just wish that you would vote on this ordinance and do the will of the people that requested this. And I just ask that you honor our request and go from there. Thank you.
Angie Jensen.
Hello, I'm Angie Jensen. I live in Williamsburg. I am on the east side of Iowa County. And although I have been assured that there will be no wind turbines in my area, I'm here to support the rest of Iowa County, my friends, my family, those that this affects. I want you just to imagine learning that you're going to have a 600-foot turbine placed next to your home. How are you going to feel about that? Think about your friends, think about your family as well, how that's going to affect them. We all want it to be a safe distance for everyone. We're all trying to reach the same goal, and that's to protect our loved ones. And there just needs to be rules, guidelines. The ordinance that is currently in play doesn't do us justice. We believe the revisions that everyone has requested here this morning, they're all fair. They would allow the ordinance to protect everyone in Iowa County, the participants, the non-participants, and the whole county itself. So I ask that you please vote no on approving the current ordinance that is drafted, and I want you to make the revisions, please. We're requesting it respectfully. We would appreciate if the revisions would be made in a very timely fashion, and we want the hearing to be scheduled promptly so no additional easements are granted, please. Thanks for your time.
Linda Grice.
Grice, property owner in Green and English townships. I came to speak about shadow flicker, blade glint, and the ice throw. I read over the ordinance that you had proposed, and then I researched a lot of other ordinances. Some have been in effect for like 15 years, and I found that the ordinance for shadow flicker, blade glint, and ice throw that you proposed is really deficient compared to all of the other ordinances that I looked at. Most of the ordinances, in fact, I wrote up a proposed shadow flicker, blade glint, and ice throw section for an ordinance based on what I found in the other ordinances. It basically says the developer must minimize shadow flicker, blade glint, and ice throw to any receptor. And receptors are identified as houses, farm buildings, churches, feedlots, and 100 foot around each of those things. And then for schools, churches, and other public building receptors shall be defined by the entire outdoor area routinely utilized in their operation, plus a 100 foot boundary. I recently read about a situation where a farmer went out to feed his cattle. He was standing at the water trough, and it was a really peaceful night and everything, and all of a sudden the cattle spooked and almost ran him over. And it was from a shadow going by from the windmill. So I think this is something that we should really be concerned about, because a lot of the farmers in our county do have livestock. And these things and the noise affects the livestock also. Is my time up? Okay, anyway, I'd ask you to kindly revise the ordinance, and I've got a copy of ordinance proposal.
Bredeman.
I'm finishing up Denise, what Denise was sharing earlier. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, when siting a wind energy facility, areas with high sustained wind speeds are usually preferred. These areas are also where the birds and bats have evolved to migrate, often using the wind speeds to assist with their migration. Bats are highly affected by turbines since they tend to fly at lower altitudes because they feed while they are migrating. They also may be attracted to the turbines or attracted to the insects that are drawn to the turbines or turbine lighting. Obviously, areas with higher concentrations of migrating birds and bats, such as the English River Wildlife Area, indicate a higher potential rate for fatalities. Scientists have calculated that bats can save farmers anywhere from $12 to $173 per acre in pesticide costs every year. Mid-American states in an article about wind turbines in Iowa, written in 2018 by Dar Danielson,
We plan to modify the turbine's activity so they stop during certain times of the year. Should Ordinance 32 include, the turbines should not rotate the 3 months when birds are migrating through Iowa County. They also said, Dar Danielson, bats are nocturnal, so the adjustments would be during nighttime hours and other times identified when the bats are flying more often. This brings a question, should turbine blades not rotate at night and the lights be off? Thank you.
Heather Ganger.
Hi, I'm Heather Ganger. My family lives and owns land in Greene and Fillmore Townships. I would also like to ask greater protection for the English River. To be completely left out of the ordinance is a signal that the county doesn't care about the English River, which I don't think is true. Our property is quite close to the English and is a haven for all sorts of wildlife. I'd also like to remind you all that we're all neighbors in this county. Our kids play sports together, we show cows together, we take dance together. I know you all have children and grandchildren in this community. My children are young, but someday they'll inherit a lot of land in Iowa County. What kind of legacy are we leaving for them if we don't take care of our county, our rivers, and our rich heritage of farming? Let's look forward to the future and be confident that we're leaving the land better than when we started. The way the ordinance currently reads, I fear for what kind of county our future generations will be left.
Marsha McKinley.
My husband and 3 children moved to Iowa County 25 years ago this month. We live on a small 3-acre plot in York Township, a place in the country to raise the kids away from the hub of city life. One of the qualities that we quickly learned was how this whole region of communities was a fairly tight-knit, many having gone to school together, married, had kids, and put down roots. There is such a wholesome underpinning to it all, be it through church, sports, civic groups, volunteering, and having each other's backs in the time of need through natural disaster or someone in dire straits due to serious health issues. It's a beautifully knit fabric that only smaller communities seem to master, and no one should take the camaraderie for granted. Its threads so dependent upon the others to keep from being stretched too far, unraveling or ripping, because once those threads come apart, there is no mending tape, no glue, no extra fabric on the shelf to mend the patch, the wound. Climate change is in the everyday conversation piece these days. As a farming community, the agricultural link is hardwired to the issue. Scientists have been yelling about it for at least 10 years, attempting to figure out how to combat it, what potential remedy lies in the wake. I know I don't have the answers, and I also am not convinced that wind energy is the way to go. I have not read, researched, and listened to as much of anything as much as I have these past 6 months since my days in college. As a person who didn't fully grasp the entire concept of wind energy and all the precious resources, energy, money, and time spent just building the monster things, I was appalled at what I unearthed in my quest. And that isn't even addressing the maintenance involved in the eventual decommissioning. What you discover is there isn't any net gain when you allow yourself to study all the facts. But what you lose is so much more. The very heart of America, our beautiful Midwest, is being saturated with these monsters. People's lives are being forever changed by this insidious cancer. It's a terrible price to pay when you have the soul of communities pitted against each other, family members and neighbors forever disrupted with wounds that may never heal. What this group is requesting today is to be heard, to be respected, and to ask that we meet in the middle. Thank you.
David Fetzer.
My name is David Fetzer. I live in Pilot Township, right south of Interstate 80, on the wind farm that is already in progress, and we will have wind turbines around our home. The Board of Supervisors has allowed Mid-America Energy and Invenergy to authorize these turbines around our Century home on J Avenue without notifying my wife Jeannie and I. And because the County Board of Supervisors decided an ordinance was not necessary to protect our non-participants, Invenergy took advantage of this green light and sold farmers the largest turbines ever installed in the state of Iowa. Our biggest frustration is that officials here that we have elected have considered their county financial gain over the beautiful landscape of our county, the health of its citizens, the conservation of birds, and the decommissioning of these turbines. A farmer that's related to me has been approached by Invenergy, and he told me that he would consider putting a turbine on one of his farms, and they said no, you have to sign up all your farms. So this bullying by Invenergy allows the turbines to have absentee landlords, absentee ground where no farm, no person would live, and yet still have turbines installed. What happens to stray voltage from these turbines? Do the farmers, like the farmer in Wisconsin, who lost hundreds of prized dairy cows due to stray voltage, have any recourse to sue Mid-America or Invenergy or the Iowa County Board of Supervisors? My biggest frustration is the lack of transparency of this major project in our county without public opportunity prior to releasing the slick salesmen who have gone around and sold these turbines. My neighbor.
Jennifer Allen.
Hi, Jennifer Allen, small landowner between Williamsburg and Parnell. I find that the ordinance as written provides protections that are only at or below the bare minimum for sound, for shadow flicker, and for setback distances from non-participants. I would just urge you to please make revisions to this. I don't believe that good enough should ever be good enough for Iowa County.
John Gingrich.
Good morning. I'm John Gingrich. I live in Green Township. I'm hard of hearing, so if I come across loud and brash, just ignore it, please. Thank you for having this hearing today. I pray that you will listen to everybody today and that our county can have a wind ordinance to protect everyone. This includes the easement signers, the non-participating landowners, the residents, and the whole county. There's a lot of different distances in this proposed ordinance. I don't know where they all came from, but about a week ago I was thinking about this and I came up with a solution, I believe. There's these good neighbor agreements that are being proposed in high-risk situations. So I think they just told us what the distance is. You know, if you get beyond that distance, they don't offer them. So if that number is a half mile, that's 2,640 feet. That's 1,600 feet is what the first ordinance was. I believe you guys changed that to 2,000 feet, and I appreciate the effort to do that. I would still like to see the distance increased to 2,640 feet. And I would like to see every number increased by that same amount in the ordinance. The next thing that I would like to address here is the height and the size of the turbines. I have a pig farm, and when I was building my farm, I had a ton of rules to follow in regards to siting my buildings. The size of the building dictated the setback distance. And so I think the same principle should apply here. You know, the taller and the more watt rating that the turbines have, the greater the setback distance should be. Next thing I would like to visit with you about is Ordinance 27. This is in regards to the property tax special valuation. Since this is an optional and it's not mandatory, I've become very frustrated with this. I'm asking you guys to rescind this with the Diamond Trail project, if at all possible. If you can't rescind it, please consider it 7 years from now when it expires. Also, I would like any new projects that are in the works or in the future to not use Ordinance 27. And I'd like to have them taxed, you know, the way they normally would be. I would also like to see the Old English River and Old Man's Creek included in the setbacks, like the Iowa River is getting, and either protect them all or don't do any of them. Let's be fair. Thank you for your time today, and this is the most important issue our county's ever done, and certainly the most important one you guys have done on your, while being on the board. Do you guys have any questions at all?
Couldn't hear you for all the noise. So there's been plenty of comments and requests for deviations from the current ordinance, and I think the evidence is compelling. The current ordinance that we're looking at, Ordinance 32, is not meeting the needs of the people of Iowa County. So I'm asking you to vote no on the ordinance, and then I'm asking you to set up a citizens committee to advise you on a new ordinance. That would be the only fair way to do it. Have the citizens of Iowa County provide the input for a new ordinance.
Gary Boland.
Did I sign up to speak? Yes, I did. Okay.
That was the sign up to speak then.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought about some things to say today. I respect everybody's opinion, whether they want a windmill or not on their property. I think that's fine. I was against your last ordinance you passed. I think we talked about, maybe it wasn't the last one, but I was against one on personal property rights. You could come in and tell people whether to clean up their farm or not, their house, their acreage. I felt it infringed on personal property rights. My basic belief is this infringes also. I've been to ordinance hearings all over the state, Wisconsin, in Illinois, public meetings on projects that I build in agriculture. When people are against something, they're against it. When people are for it, they're for it. I try to respect both sides of that, and I try to do that today. But overall, I am against majority ordinances that are passed because I feel they're slippery slopes. And I feel there's cause and effect with all of them. If you choose to pass an ordinance, I'll respect that. But my hope is you don't. Thank you.
Chad Jones? No? Okay. Darcy Knoll?
I'm good too.
Brad Sherman?
My name's Brad Sherman. I live between Williamsburg and Parnell, and I guess with all the talk about property rights, I'm just curious why anyone would want to sign the contract, I've read the contract, and there's a significant amount of property rights that are signed away in that contract. And so I asked myself why. I suspect some people think it's green energy or sustainability or the environment, protecting the environment. And but there's really nothing green about these windmills. I think that's been proven by many studies. But I would say one thing to this, and that's this term sustainable development, the green is about 80% promoted by the UN, and it was the UN World Commission on Environment Development, and it was authored by Harlan Brundtland, who was the vice president of the World Socialist Party. So there's definitely a political aspect to this. The other reason I wondered about this is because of money. The Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil. And I'm not suggesting that there's any illegal transfer of funds taking place, but the love of money can apply to increasing the tax base or anything else. And so, and the love of money can tend to blind people to the long-term consequences of what these wind turbines can be. So I share these things simply for the sake of you to hopefully spark some introspection and possibly reconsideration and property rights for all, and for the sake of those listening, that we would all reconsider. And but my final point is this: I hope these meetings are not just a charade. I feel like if there had been a serious effort by the supervisors to inform the people, we would have been having hearings like this long before now. There would have been a greater effort to inform the people. I know the basic requirements were met to inform the public. I'm not accusing you of that. But this is a matter of people working together. And so I just wanted to share that. I hope you'll consider and do the right thing. Thank you.
Sorry about the phone. Thought I had it shut off. I'm Dale Foss, landowner in Pilot, Lincoln, and English Township, also landowner in English River Bottom. When I attended the June 28th meeting, I was under the assumption that I, as a landowner and farmer, would be grandfathered in under the Diamond Trail project. After talking to a supervisor recently, I found out that I was not correct. With that said, I am not in agreement with what Abigail and her group said at the I am in agreement with what Abigail and her group said at the last meeting, that you, this is a quote, you as supervisors should look at starting over. And that seems to be the consensus today on the ordinance. But my reasons are different than theirs. As stated by Abigail, Blattner Energy said there were other projects for those that were already signed up. Where I take exception against this ordinance is there. If there were other projects planned, as I and Abigail both understand, then I would like to present to you, the supervisors,
You guys uphold the rule that
present to the supervisors of Iowa County
Only to you
the
guys.
agreement of easement,
That was one of your
section
rules.
2.5, called projects. That's what I handed you, was 2.5. I have requested and been given permission to do so by Mid-American Energy, because as the last gentleman mentioned, he looked at the contract. I don't know if he signed up, but we're not supposed to share it.
You're not supposed to address the public, that's one of your rules, sorry guys.
So don't name anybody.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
I told you to read the rules.
Well, I apologize to you, Abigail.
Thanks.
You betcha. Now that you have read that, if you have you?
Yeah.
And all I did at the last meeting, I listened to your recording. So now that you've read that, I will explain mine and other landowners' request to abandon this ordinance in its entirety. Section 2.5 says it in of itself, but also the easements are recorded as Diamond Trail Energy Project easement. This ordinance will allow those that already have windmills placed to proceed forward, but leaves the rest of us, and possibly even those that already have windmills, out of the future expansion because of the extended setbacks proposed in the ordinance. Our group believes we are part of the Diamond Trail project, windmills or not, and that the ordinance does not reflect this. We realize the county or supervisors can do what they want, when they want, as far as this project, ordinance, or situation is concerned. But as stated in the agreement between Iowa County supervisors, Diamond Trail Wind Energy, and Mid-America, and number 4, your agreement through them. My question to the supervisor, and I'm not gonna read it, 'cause it takes too much of my time. My question to the supervisors is this: is this ordinance for the betterment of Iowa County, or just to appease or quiet some loud voices? The betterment of Iowa County in our eyes is a tremendous increase in tax base and increased revenue to area farmer landowners. The loss to those of us that would be excluded is. That is a question that needs to be answered in the ordinance, if the ordinance is passed. As stated in the last meeting, I got interrupted, I'm about done. As stated in the last meeting, there were other projects slated for those of us that have already signed up for the project. What will be their monetary loss? I got it estimated at 36 million, times how many projects. If you pass this ordinance, the only choice for the rest of us that have signed up will be legal recourse or remedies under the law. This is not where any of us, the 300 landowners, want to be. I ask you to abandon and repeal number 32 and any other ordinances.
Jim Stevenson.
Jim Stevenson, I live in English Township and have land in Pilot, Green, Dayton. I worry that what I signed up for was to be able to get wind turbines, and where my land is not selected yet, I'm gonna be prevented from getting them there. My wife and I both wanted turbines on there for some time. The ordinance as written, I think, will prevent us from that ever happening. Thank you.
Rod Joseph.
I thought I was just signing up for the tendency.
Okay, sorry.
I will say this, I pretty much agree with 90% of what's been said today.
Tom McGarry.
Tom McGarry, Iowa County farmer, Victor. I want to add to the ordinance, whatever one is passed, that it be put on a flatter surface. I will be receiving the 2 meg turbine. I did sign up last November, but before I signed up, I made them come out and show me where it's going. They stood on top of the hill. Turns out it's going to be about 200 foot down over the top of the hill. It's on a slope hill that's 12 to 14% slope. The difficulty of farming around the turbine on the flat is one thing, but the difficulty on the side hill will be raised quite a bit because of soil erosion, turning ditches and gullies and all that stuff. I ask that you, if you do pass an ordinance, that it put it on flatter ground, not to exceed 5% slope. Thank you.
David Fleming.
I'm sorry, I didn't have anything to say, I just thought I was signing in.
Okay. Greg Reuter.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Greg Ryder, live in North English. Being in Iowa, it's all about being good neighbors. I think everyone here knows that we're all Iowa nice, I think. This agreement between the Board of Supervisors and Invenergy was anything but neighborly. I don't think anyone outside of, the people that signed the agreements knew this was really happening until, June-ish timeframe. The public wasn't notified, so we're kind of in an SOL type of situation right now, but yeah, at least the ordinance would do something to help us out. Now, I'm in agreement with what most of the people have said about the setbacks, the 2 mile from towns, 3 miles from the English River, and 4.4 times the height of a wind turbine. So, I'm hoping any new developments, anything that comes out, you guys can maybe be a bit more neighborly about it.
Do you have more to say? Because that wasn't your turn. The other guy was really quick and I didn't respond.
Carl Dietrich.
Carl Dietrich, Pilot Township.
I will be one receiving one of the large wind turbines. I do live within the quarter-mile setback, which you may not know because my brother's name is on the land thing instead of me. So your facts of 17 people living within.
Addressing the public.
Yeah, don't, just address us.
Don't do it.
The facts of the 17 members living within the quarter mile, whatever was said, may not be correct. So being name filed at the courthouse is not the same as it's living in the vicinity. You know, I was about wind energy. When I was walking into this building, there's a license plate on a vehicle. It's got a picture of a wind turbine. You know, that's statewide. And talking about Luke passage about counting the costs. I've definitely counted the cost. It affects my bottom line substantially, and the future of turning this ground over to my daughters when my time of passing away comes upon. So I have counted the cost. Thank you.
Candace Crane.
I'll pass.
Adam Jolbowski. Sorry. Sorry.
Adam Jablonski, Mid-American. I don't expect I'll get the applause that others have received today. Here to talk about, you know, what the way this ordinance is drafted would affect future wind projects. And I think fortunately for everyone in this room, they're not new. They've been operating successfully in Iowa for over 2 decades. 4,000 of them, as a matter of fact, operating currently, and more going up every year. So nothing new maybe to this area, but nothing new, so we can learn from that. I think someone else brought this up, but just understanding the application process. I don't think you have a zoning administrator where you'd submit an application to. So what is the process for future projects to go in and, you know, apply for this, or is it really set up as a permitted use in the county? The setbacks, how they would affect future projects, you know, we've got some extensive experience there. The 2,000 feet from residences, I mean, I can tell you what that will do. An example is Adair County, and they were pretty open about this when they implemented a 2,000 foot setback, which is the greatest in Iowa that I'm aware of. They ultimately said that was like a moratorium, and so they got a comprehensive amendment in place. So that's what that'll do. And then I urge you to consider some of the other setbacks in here, you know, from natural gas pipelines, utility lines, right-of-ways, microwave paths, public roads. You know, I don't think you're gonna hurt any of their feelings if you put it a little closer, and I don't think there's a need to do that, so those that do wanna host in the future would have that opportunity to do so. So it looks like, you know, you started with our list and our agreement there, and then you added 10 to 20% to that. But I think, you know, in those certain areas, it doesn't appear like a lot of people have concerns about those setbacks. We don't feel those are needed, and they'll just over encumber the area and not allow those who want them to host them. You know, maybe push it down the side hill or something like that, like we talked about before. And then just last, I think someone else brought this up too, and I think it's a good idea. It may be worth referencing the agreement we signed with the county and Invenergy, and giving that exception to Diamond Trail on the back end, just a little more definition around that, so everyone knows what that project is. Thank you.
Mark Saccone.
Mark Zacconi, Invenergy. I'd like to, basically, I'm not gonna reiterate what Adam just said, but in doing development and working on ordinances throughout the state, I can tell you the 2,000 foot setback on non-participating, which may have been followed by Adair County, would really hinder future development in this county. I don't know if that was the intent of that, but I wish you'd consider relooking at that. Thank you.
Becky Birch.
Yes.
Christopher
Ganger.
Ganger. Thank you, sorry.
As we come to a conclusion today, I would like to see all those in favor of ordinance changes to please stand. Thank you.
All right, that's all I have on the list that wish to speak.
So moved.
Second?
Close, oh,
Yes.
we can't hardly hear you down there.
Sorry.
Or I can't hardly hear you down
All
there.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So now, is there a motion to pass the ordinance?
Adopt.
I would like to make a motion, before I do, if it's okay, and we do have the attorney here. As I understand it, there's three options. We can pass the first reading of this ordinance today. We can not pass it or vote no, and then there is no ordinance of any type. Or through other hearings or processes, it can be modified. But as I understand it, it would have to be passed today to continue the hearings, or we start over, basically. I know it's a lot of options, but I would like to move that we approve the first reading of ordinance 32 as it currently stands.
Were you just here?
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Hi, Susan.
Nay.
Garen.
No.
Hope.
No.
Adams.
Yes.
Gallagher.
I'll abstain due to conflict of interest.
All right. Motion fails due to lack of majority.
Motion to adjourn.
Are you guys gonna rewrite it then, or what's your plan?
That'll be discussed now.
When are you guys gonna discuss this though? If it's not a public meeting, that's not, here where closed meeting laws, open meeting laws.
Well aware.
When are you guys gonna discuss this then?
Discuss it next week.
So next week, you'll have it on the agenda.
It's not on today's agenda to discuss.
So I'm just asking, so next week you'll have it on the agenda so you can discuss it, correct?
Yeah, it'll start the process all over again.
Okay.
So either it'll be more restrictive or less restrictive. It doesn't say which way it's gonna go.
I understand that, I just am curious how this process works, and that's the question.
Because the last time, well aware that you were complaining that we weren't getting it done fast enough, so we got it done, and it wasn't quite right.
Yeah, we also came to you, I'd like to say this, we also came to you and asked you to make these changes before you wrote it,
Not all these,
most of them.
not all of these.
Most of them.
Is there a second?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
But just to be clear, there is no public hearing on Wednesday night.
Right, because the motion failed.
So there will be no public hearing this Wednesday night. So if you want to pass the word among those that maybe were planning on that, we'll put it on our website. Right?